You are now listening to the Box Seat Boys podcast.
What's up, guys? Josh from the Boxing Boys back with episode 2. Riding solo again. Got a brand new mic, so it might sound a little bit weird. We're going to get that thing worked out, but if this episode sounds a little weird, it will get better in the future. Just got to figure out some settings on this thing. But anyway, we're going to talk some college football, NFL, some baseball, and then the NBA starts tonight. So we're going to cover everything again. It's a great time of the year when all of the greatest sports are going on right now. I mean, all the major sports. I'm not going to get into hockey too much just because of my lack of knowledge of it. I do watch it more as an entertainment thing than as like an analyst thing. But football, baseball, and basketball all going on at the same time. As a sports fan, you can't really ask for more. So just to get started, I mean, college football, I was set on Clemson going undefeated. I talked about it in episode 1, how I thought there really wasn't a team that I thought that could beat them, especially in the ACC. And then they go out and lay an egg Friday. I watched the game. They were favored by, I think, like 24 or 27 points. And then they go out and lose. Now, playing Syracuse in Syracuse is a lot different than playing Syracuse on the road. However, I don't consider that an excuse. Kelly Bryant, the quarterback for Clemson, got hurt, got a concussion, wasn't able to continue playing again. As much as that hurts the team, I don't think there's an excuse to lose to Syracuse when you're the number 2 team in the nation. So Syracuse pulls the huge upset. They played a tremendous game against Clemson, and Clemson goes down. You know, they not like they've gone undefeated every year and everything. Last year they lost to Pitt, so they still could make the playoff. But after all the boasting I did last week about how they're not going to really be tested, they were tested, and if Kelly Bryant, for whatever reason, doesn't pass the concussion protocol and can't play next week, they have a bye next week, I believe. In 2 weeks, they could be in trouble again. So Clemson's kind of up in the air. I still think an 11-1 regular season is very possible for them. They're still a great team. Now it's just a matter of they have to win out pretty much to make the playoff. Washington State, I also talked about them. I said, Washington State and Washington, whoever wins that game, which is the Apple Cup, the last game of the season, could find themselves in the playoff. And Washington State goes out and gets killed 37-3. They were favored by almost 17 points. They go out and lose by 34. I mean, I was talking about Luke Falk as we need to watch him, see what he can do. He was one of the guys I thought was definitely a Heisman, possibly finalist, but he definitely should at least be in the talks. He goes out with those 5 interceptions. Obviously, no touchdowns with them only scoring 3 points. So I was very surprised at how poorly they played and how poorly he played overall. Now, there were a shovel pass that was picked off. It was tipped and picked off, things like that. But to throw 5 interceptions, I understand if that was 1 or if he threw maybe 2. But to throw 5 against Cal, that was a little eye-opening because I really thought he was one of those steady guys. Everyone's due to have a bad game, but that kind of cemented it for me that he's not going to be a finalist. You can't, in Washington, as a Washington State player, Washington State quarterback with the competition for the Heisman, you really can't have bad games like that. So that kind of dropped him out of that finalist race for me. Um, Washington, the other half of that, whoever's going to win that Apple Cup, Washington also goes out and loses. They played poorly. Defensively, they kept them in the game, only giving up 13 points. They almost got shut out. I mean, they scored with 4 or 5 minutes left in the game, but they just couldn't move the ball. And Jake Browning, a great quarterback, goes 17 for 30 for 139 yards. He has the weapons to throw for 300 yards every game. So he struggled. The offense in general struggled. And, I said Washington State, Clemson, and Washington. If I had 5 teams that could make the playoffs, 3 of them lost. So that kind of threw a wrench into it. Friday the 13th was when Clemson and Washington State lost. Luke Falk had a terrible game. So Friday the 13th was not a friendly day for me. A lot of weird things happened. It's interesting to see what happens. I think Clemson will rebound. But Washington and Washington State, are they going to be able to rebound from this? Are they going to be able to go 10-1 going into that last game? Or are they, they kind of took the wind out of their sails and they kind of fold now? It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. A couple of my big, winners for the week for college football. One was Miami. Now, Miami's undefeated. Had a couple close games. Another close game over Georgia Tech. I was really concerned with them going up against that option to see. A lot of teams struggle with it. I didn't know how they were going to do. They played it pretty well. Good teams seem to catch a lot of the breaks. I think it was a 4th down, tipped ball. They completed, get the first down, 4 seconds left, kick the field goal to win. A lot of people say they could have lost 2 or 3 games, but good teams find a way to win. I think Miami is a good team. They have a couple, maybe really one tough game left, but as you can see from this past week, that doesn't really matter. They can lose at any time. But I think their biggest test, Virginia Tech. I think Virginia Tech is going to be their toughest test. And that's not for a couple weeks. So if Mark Richt, the coach, needs to figure some stuff out, he's going to have time. The other big winner was LSU. I think Ed Orgeron was kind of getting towards that hot seat type label. They were down 20-0. Came back and won the game. 20-0. It looked like it was going to be really bad for them. It looked like Coach O was going to be in some trouble job-wise. People were already saying, he should have never got the job in the first place. But if he keeps winning, even if he's down 20-0, it raises a little bit of a red flag. But if he's going to come back and win that game, that's going to put a lot of confidence in that team. And they're going to be a team I think is going to start picking it up. They're definitely going to start picking it up. Some of the losers. Now, first is Michigan. Michigan won against Indiana, but that game went to overtime. I'm starting to think Michigan might be a little bit overrated. Now, I've read reports and everything that says Michigan, all season they've been calling them overrated, and it really took until this game for me to see that offense really isn't clicking. Defense struggled at times. For them to win in overtime against a team they were, in my opinion, head and shoulders better than, raises a little bit of we might be reaching that overrated territory. They have a great coach, Harbaugh. He's going to get them back into form, but is it going to take a few more weeks? If they go into the Ohio State game in a month and a half, playing the way they did against Indiana, they're going to lose by 4 touchdowns. And I know that is a little premature to say, one game, but Ohio State's clicking on all cylinders. If you're going to let Indiana move the ball pretty easily and you have trouble stopping them and you go to overtime against that team, you're not going to have a game like you did last year where a controversial call, quote-unquote controversial call, loses you the game. You're going to get wiped off the field. So Michigan is a team, if they are going to do anything, not even make the playoffs, but have a successful season, they're going to have to figure some stuff out. The other team is Louisville. Now, everyone said basically Louisville is only successful because of Lamar Jackson. That's starting to become a trend for them. Their defense looked horrendous. Horrendous. Lamar Jackson had an okay game. He's going to run all over the place. You can't stop that. But if you can contain him and make him throw the ball, they're not going to win. They're not going to beat you because he just throws it up. He's not a touch guy. He's not a very accurate guy in small windows. So if you have a pretty good defense and you can contain Lamar Jackson from extending drives, I'm convinced they could lose to anybody. And we saw that this week. Boston College is a pretty good team, but they're known for their defense, not scoring 45 points. So there's some stuff that needs to be figured out with Louisville's defense before I consider them a top 25 team again. I don't think they're even in the realm of the top 15, top 10, anything like that. They're going to continue to struggle when their defense plays like that. Because as good as Lamar Jackson is, you can't ask him to score 50 every game. He'll try. But they start game planning against him. Other people have to start making plays. I don't know if they have the playmakers, and they definitely don't have the defense to keep it a low-scoring game. So those were really my two biggest concerns, biggest losers of the week. Even though Michigan won, they seemed to be overrated. Louisville looked terrible. LSU and Miami, 2 huge wins. Definitely looks like they're trending upward. And this upcoming week, again, not an overly great slate of games, but that's why we have upsets. That's why they play the game. This week that just passed wasn't supposed to be a great week for college football. You have Clemson lose, Washington State lose, Washington lose. That right there shows every week in college football something crazy is going to happen. My big game this week, USC Notre Dame. Primetime game. Notre Dame is, Notre Dame's favored by 3.5. I think they're the better team. They've had some struggles in the past few years. I think they're the better team. I think they're going to come out on top. They're at home, which helps immensely. Sam Darnold's going to have to play like he's supposed to play. I mean, everyone's talking about how good he is. He's going to have that, 20 of 23 passing, probably more. He's probably going to throw the ball closer to 30, 35 times. 300 and something yards, a bunch of touchdowns, no interceptions, or limited to one, and the defense has to make a play. But I think Notre Dame is a good team, a really good team. And USC, they got Darnold, who's going to try and carry them. Playing in South Bend is what concerns me, and I'm going to take Notre Dame to win that game. Other than that, big game from Bryce Love last week. I did forget to mention he had like 100 yards in the first 5 minutes of the game. I did say he's one of my guys I'm watching for Heisman. He continued. He was the one positive I had last week in college football. 100 yards in a half is amazing. Never mind the first 5 minutes. It's probably, 2 drives? I didn't watch the game, but maybe the first 2 drives. So, Bryce Love had a huge game. He's continuing to prove that he's top 2, top 3 running back if he's not the best in the country. So, I look for him to continue to move in the right direction, continue to cement his Heisman finalist, to be a Heisman finalist. I also want to give a shout out to Damian Harris from Alabama. First play from scrimmage, 75-yard touchdown. He's one of those guys, he'll get drafted probably pretty late, but he's a workhorse. He doesn't need to be an Adrian Peterson or Leonard Fournette, anything like that. But he runs hard and he runs downhill, and he's going to be an asset for a team. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's going to be one of those guys that a late pick, maybe not late, probably not first or second round, but he's a guy to watch in the future as well because he has been playing extremely well. Alabama's got 5, 6 running backs, and he's been dominating the carries just because of how well he's been performing. So he knows he has to play well every week to keep that spot. I mean, Alabama's loaded with Bo Scarborough and Najee Harris, who's a freshman who's absolutely a monster. So he's fighting for his job every week. That chip on his shoulder is going to do a lot for him in the future. So keep an eye on him. Obviously, Bryce Love. And then we'll just see what happens next week with college football. Who knows? Another top 5 team could go down, or 3 could go down. Who knows what's going to happen? The NFL it's been such a weird season with the NFL. The Patriots, of course, so many question marks. I don't really know what to say about them. I mean, for the majority of the game against the Jets, I was really concerned they were going to lose that game. So they ended up winning on a fumble call that I've heard 150 different explanations on both sides. So it was ruled one way. That's how it's going to be. And they won the game, which right now I'll take that. I'll take any win that they're going to get because it's not guaranteed every week like I thought it was going to be. Giants won a game that I would have bet my life that they were going to lose. Playing in Denver with your top player out, Brandon Marshall out, haven't shown any signs of being able to run the ball. Defense hasn't looked overly great. And then they go in there, I think like an 11.5-point dog, and win? I couldn't believe it. Could not believe it. That still doesn't change my opinion that they're a bad team. I still think they're a bad team. the season is just really weird, and everyone is literally can beat anyone, and that's the case in any game. But I think this year you're seeing that even more. For example, the Jets. People were saying if they won 2 games, that is a winning season for them because they were supposed to be awful. They took the Patriots to the wire, won a few games already. They're a team, they're not going to make the playoffs, but they're a team that could flirt with 6-7 wins, which is a huge improvement than what they were supposed to win. Everyone was already saying, tank the season, get Darnold, get Browning, get whoever, one of the 4 quarterbacks that everyone was talking about, because that's what they need. And I was convinced that they didn't need to tank. They were just going to be that bad. And they proved me wrong. And then again, the Giants, I thought they were going to be pretty solid. 11-win team, maybe. If they want to win 11 games, they got to win out. So, it's just been a weird season. I do want to say, I did listen to Joe's Fantasy Field Goal as part of the B.S.N network and B.S. Nerd show. Joe mentioned play Fournette, play Gurley, and you'll have a pretty good chance of winning your fantasy league, or in my case, I play daily fantasy. I didn't take Gurley. I took Fournette, and I took... Who was the other running back I had? I have to look. Oh, I took Le'Veon Bell. I had to take him just because the Steelers against the Chiefs, they just have their number, it seems like. So, taking Le'Veon, he's got to turn it around at some point. So I figured, let's take him, see what he does. They couldn't stop him. They could not stop him. And Steelers, give the Chiefs their first loss. I don't think that turns the Steelers season around. I still think they have some unanswered questions with what's going on in that locker room. Now you have Martavius Bryant, who's saying, I want to be traded. He's not happy with the sub packaging. He's not happy with the amount of targets he's getting. I guess the request came a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and then it just kind of snowballed. I don't think they're going to even attempt to trade him. Last I heard, there was really no talks of them trying to. But after his suspensions and everything like that, who's going to take the chance? I mean, that's my biggest thing. That there might be some teams that are willing to. He's got the talent. He's a heck of a receiver. But knowing that he could be suspended for a whole year or whatever because he isn't smart enough to stay off the weed and be smart, I don't know who's going to say, hey, we'll give you this. The Steelers, I don't think, will get much for him. So I thought it was very interesting that came out after the game. I did notice while I was watching the Steelers game, he did come out quite often, and it just seemed kind of weird. The announcers were basically saying, hey, it's going to be some time before he's going to get a lot of snaps, just because it takes time to get back in the flow after being out for a year. But we're 6 weeks in, 7 weeks in, something like that. We're almost halfway through the season. if he's not happy with the touches he's going to get, he's probably not going to get those touches in the future, or targets, I should say. So he's just going to continue to be unhappy, lead to dysfunction in the locker room, which they don't need any more of. Le'Veon, Antonio Brown, now him, Big Ben. I mean, there's a lot of, I guess I'll say, personality on that team. And it seems that everybody is selfish on that team. Le'Veon's not getting the ball, he's not happy. Antonio Brown's not getting the ball, he's not happy. Martavis Bryant's not happy because he's not getting the ball. There's only one ball in play. Not everyone can touch it. So, unfortunately, for Martavis Bryant, you have an unbelievable running back and one of the best receivers in the game on your team. Your targets are going to go down. I'm interested. This is how my thought process is. If the Steelers right now were 6-0, would he be complaining? Or if Antonio Brown wasn't getting upset and voicing that he wasn't happy that he wasn't getting the ball thrown to him, would he act out? So he doesn't have the leadership in the team, but is it because the team's not as successful as they were hoping for and now he's upset about it and he thinks him getting the targets is going to change that? I don't know. I do know that when Antonio Brown threw his fit, the next week he had an ungodly amount of targets. It seemed like every play we're going to get Antonio Brown the ball because we don't want him to be upset. Is the play calling going to be the same now that Bryant is unhappy? Was that his thought process? Hey, it worked for him. If it worked for him, if I voice my opinion, voice that I'm upset, take it a step further, say I want to be traded. If they don't trade me, maybe they'll throw me the ball more. If we come out next week and see he's got 12 targets, 13 targets, that's eye-opening for Steeler fans because that's going to snowball. Because if he gets targeted more, Antonio Brown gets targeted less, he's going to be upset again. Less carries for Bell, he's probably going to get upset. So you're in a situation now as the front office for the Steelers. How do you keep everyone happy? The answer is you can't. If they're going to act like that and be selfish like that, you can't keep them all happy. So then what's the next step? You pick and choose. So right now it's not looking like they're going to attempt to move Martavis Bryant. Could be something in the future if it keeps up. Could be something in the future to think about. Because if you have 3 players that aren't happy with their touches or targets, and you can keep 2 of them, you're keeping Le'Veon Bell and you're keeping Antonio Brown. That's just how it is. They're better. Not taking anything away from Martavis Bryant, but he's not as good. So, again, the NFL, been a weird season with all that, and then you have the protests and everything like that that's been happening, and Kaepernick. I'm not even going to get into that because everyone's heard enough of that. But straight football-wise, you're looking at a very interesting season so far, and we're going into week 7. This upcoming week is interesting in the sense of we have the Atlanta Falcons underperforming and the New England Patriots underperforming. So the game's in New England. Atlanta just lost to Miami. Just Jay Cutler just beat Matt Ryan. I mean, you can't look at it that way, but that's how I look. That was the first thing I thought of. So New England's favored by 3.5. I can't even begin to pick this game. Because is New England's offense going to show up? Is their defense going to play average? Is Atlanta going to show up? They looked great in the beginning of the game against Miami and then folded. Is that going to happen? Similar to the Super Bowl? If I had to pick this game simply because it's in New England, I would go with New England. But New England's 2 losses this year are at home. New England's 1-2 at home right now, which is almost unheard of. Atlanta, what are they? 3-2 overall. I think their 2 losses are at home as well. So I think they're 2-0 on the road. It's the primetime Sunday night game. Brady's going to be fired up. I'm sure Atlanta's going to be fired up after what happened in the Super Bowl, looking for revenge. I would guess both teams are going to have their best game of the season. The best game of the season to date, I should say. New England's offense is going to play well. Brady's going to have them ready. Their defense is going to play as expected. I don't think they're going to shut out Atlanta or anything like that, but they're going to play as expected. Atlanta is going to come out fired up to get revenge in New England against the Patriots. I think this game is going to be, I don't want to say a turnaround because they're both underperforming, but they're not playing terribly. New England played terribly last week, but I think the winner of this game, it changes their season and skyrockets them to, hey, we're clicking now. We're going to finish the season, whatever, 10-1 or whatever it is. 9-1 for the Patriots, 10-1 for Atlanta. I could see something like that happening. Or, the winner of this game ends up a 4-loss team or something. Just because for both teams, how the beginning of the season's gone, what happened in the Super Bowl, both teams are going to come out fired up. Patriots are not going to want the Atlanta to get revenge in New England, Sunday night, prime time. And I know Tom Brady's not going to want that, and he's going to be ready to go, especially after the performance against the Jets they had. And Atlanta just blew I believe they were down, or they were up 17-0, and then blew that game. So it was kind of reminiscent of the Super Bowl, being up and then losing. They're going to come back with a vengeance from the Super Bowl and what happened last week, where they're not going to let their foot off the gas pedal if they get up. So I'm interested for that game. I'm also interested in the Giants in Seattle. I want to see if the Giants keep it up. Another tough game against Seattle. They're at home. What do? Do they go back to their 0-5 ways, or do they go back to last week and pull out a victory? If they win 2 in a row against the Broncos and the Seahawks, they might be able to turn their season around and do pretty good. Not a playoff team, but maybe a 500 team, 9-7 team. So, again, there's a lot of good games in general. The Kansas City-Oakland game is going to be fun to watch. I love watching those two teams play. Cleveland and Tennessee. Tennessee's favored by 5.5. It sounds about right. Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. That's usually a dog fight. It's in Pittsburgh. I do expect Pittsburgh to win that game by a touchdown, 10 points, something like that. But there are some pretty good games. New Orleans looked really good last week. They go into Green Bay without Aaron Rodgers. That's something that's going to really hurt Green Bay. I just don't see. What's his Hudley? I don't even know his name. Whatever his name is, the backup for Green Bay. I just don't see him being able to carry Green Bay to Super Bowl or a couple playoff wins or anything like that. They're gonna have to rely on that defense heavily, and this week's gonna be a test after what New Orleans did last week. So there's a lot of interesting games in the sense of what the future could hold for the rest of the season. The Giants are looking to turn their season around with 2 big wins in a row. New England and Atlanta looking to figure things out for themselves. Green Bay, they got it tough now without Aaron Rodgers. So, a lot of good games. I'm not really sure. Obviously, the Pats game's my favorite game. Other than that, I don't really know what my favorite game's going to be to watch. Probably the Steelers, just because that's going to, like I said, that's going to be hard hitting and everything like that. And see what happens with Martavis Bryant, see if he gets his targets. NFL, man, like I said, it's weird this year. It's really weird. If you would have told me Atlanta and New England would be going into Week 7, 1-4-2, 1-3-2, I probably would have just laughed. And then if you would have told me that the Jets were 3-3, probably would have laughed. It's a very weird season. I'm interested to see how after we're almost halfway through, but the rest of the season goes. I really hope that we see New England pick it up. I'm interested. You know what I'm interested to see? I want to see how Trubisky does as well. They won last week. He played all right. He played okay. I think now that we're 6 games in for the Bears, he's getting a little bit more comfortable. Getting a little bit more comfortable with the speed of the game, a little bit more comfortable with the offense. He's turning into a pretty good quarterback. I was down on him because of the lack of experience he had at the college level when he got drafted. He's looking all right. Deshaun Watson's looking unbelievable, in my opinion, for what I expected to what we got. He's looking all right. Kaiser got benched. Even his college coach said he wasn't ready. I agree. When I watched the combine, he looked horrendous. So I still think there's going to be some teams that go out next year that are going to need quarterbacks, even if they got one. Trubisky's he's gonna be the Bears quarterback, I think. Deshaun, he's gonna be the quarterback. The Browns, I think, are gonna need a quarterback. I don't think Kaiser's the answer there. So we'll just wait and see the rest of the season. The playoffs, baseball. The Yankees are playing right now. So I'm recording this as game 4 is going on. Let me see what the score is right now. It is 0-0 through 3. 0-0 through 3. So McCullers is pitching for the Astros. I mean, and he's a good pitcher. He's tough to score on. I think the Astros, now even though they dropped the game yesterday, they look so good. They're impossible to get out. Like, when you watch baseball now, and somebody strikes out, it's no big deal. Because you have guys like Aaron Judge who will strike out 200 times but hit 52 home runs. So, it's not a big deal. When you watch the Astros and you know how good they are and you're aware of what is going on in baseball with the amount of strikeouts that are happening, when you see how hard it is to strike not even just Altuve out, but the whole team, is unbelievable. They're so good, and I believe I mentioned it on episode 1 with Correa. He the first 3 games of the ALDS, he didn't swing and miss. He always made contact. The whole team's like that. Altuve struck out yesterday, and I almost fell out of my chair. Because it's like, you don't see it. You don't see him strike out. You don't see Correa strike out. Even guys like Gaddis, he puts the bat on the ball. I mean, he's a big lug. He doesn't strike out a lot. I want to see teams. I'm interested to see if they win the World Series, if we're going to shift backwards a little bit. Instead of looking for Giancarlo Stanton, which I hope on everything the Red Sox try and get him. I don't think it's going to happen, but I hope. I wonder if we're going to shift back from the Giancarlo Stanton, the Aaron Judges, to more of that, not necessarily the 5'5" second baseman like Altuve, but hey, we're gonna build a team on guys that are impossible to strike out. Because what that does is, Aaron Judge he'll hit 52 home runs. He'll also strike out on 3 curveballs out of the zone, 3 sliders out of the zone, and have this same bat path all 3 times, not make any adjustment. You throw Altuve a curveball, don't throw him a first pitch fastball. That's a base hit. You throw him a first pitch curveball, he'll watch it and make that adjustment. I wonder if we're going to shift back to that, where a team goes, okay, look what the Astros did. They had guys that hit for power, but those guys also struck out 17% of the time. Or I don't know the exact number, that I just made that up. But they're not striking out 200 times in a 600 at-bat season or something like that. Because if you put a lineup together like that, it's very hard for a starting pitcher to go more than 6. They're going to throw a lot of pitches because you get them down 0-2, 1-2, they're going to foul the ball off. Or they'll put the ball in play, and it's either base hit, which happens a lot for these guys. I mean, Altuve batted like 346 or something like that. they if we see that shift where general managers are trying to put those kind of teams together, there's going to be a lot of people that are not happy because they want to see these kids juice out of their heads and hit, with juice balls and hit 600-foot home runs. But guys like me will appreciate the game and say, hey, we're seeing something that we haven't seen. Like when I watch the Astros, I'm seeing something I haven't seen in a long time. And that brings me to Aaron Judge. I was talking about him. He'll hit 52 home runs. He's struggling right now. I mean, he struck out, I forget what the stat was. I'm going to make up some numbers, but they seem to be pretty relevant. I think it was like 19 times in 27 at-bats. That seems pretty close to accurate. I don't know the exact numbers. My man's not even putting the ball in play. You can't expect to have your middle of the lineup guy strike out that much. I understand that's the demographic of the game now. That's the way of the game now. But you need a guy like Correa who, yeah, he'll hit you some home runs. Not 52, but he'll bat 310, or he'll put the ball in play or have situational hitting. So that's my biggest thing right now is we're seeing a team be very successful. Their pitching helps a lot, but we're seeing a team be successful because they're putting the ball in play. They're not swinging for the fence every time, and it's working for them. So are we going to see that shift? I'm not sure if we are, but it would make sense to me if we start seeing the Astros continue to be relevant, continue to get better, improve, and it's because they're combining that, hey, we're not going to strike out, we're going to have tough at-bats, and we'll give you 20 to 30 home runs a year. That seems to be the move for me. But as long as we have 6-7 monsters, it's not gonna change. The Dodgers up 2-0 in the series. They're dominating. They had a walk-off win. Justin Turner hit a walk-off. They look unbelievable. I mean, they've given up like 7 hits, I think, in 2 games. Hitting the ball pretty well. I really thought the Cubbies were going to come out and win this series. At this point, I'm really just hoping they take a game. I think they're really just overmatched. I mean, the Dodgers were the best team in baseball, and they're continuing to show it in the playoffs. They're really impressive. I think the Dodgers and Astros, if that's what happens in the World Series, it's going to be a special series because we're going to see good pitching from both sides, which obviously there has to be. They're in the World Series. We're going to see really good pitching from both sides. But we're going to see 2 lineups that are, I think, top to bottom, 2 of the best lineups we've seen in a very long time. And the Dodgers seem to be, I mean, they're hot, obviously, but it seems to be they're getting even better every single game. I just don't see the way the Cubs are going to beat them, even though that's who I picked to go to the World Series. So Game 3 for them is tonight. If the Dodgers win and go up 3-0, it's only happened one time, but I don't think they're going to. I think there's a good chance they get swept, especially if they go out and have another performance like get 3 hit or 4 hit like they did Game 1 and 2. So I think the Dodgers are just overmatched. They're just overmatching them. They're just better. They're a better team. in all aspects, which is really surprising because beginning of the year I thought the Cubs were the best team in baseball, bar none. The NBA starts tonight. We have the Celtics matching up with, of course, the Cavs. Now, if there's a better opening day matchup, I don't know what it would be in any sport. And I know it was set, obviously, before the Kyrie trade, but the Kyrie trade to the Celtics just puts the icing on the cake for this matchup. The Celtics are pegged at 53.5 for the win total. I think that's pretty accurate. I would say 56 would be like pushing it. The Cavs are at 54.5. I think that's high. I think they're a 51, 52 win team. I think the Celtics are the number one seed. I mean, they're going to have to do incredible things to be a 55 win team. I think the 54.5, I think they have to go under. Some of the other ones that caught my eye, the Thunder at 52.5. I might have to go over there. I might have to take the over. And the same with the Spurs at 53.5. I might have to go over. The other team that I really think is going to go under, let me see. The Lakers at 32.5. If they win 30 games, I would consider that a good year. So I'm going to go under for them. Philadelphia is at 40 wins. I'm going to go under. I'm going to go there I'm going to peg them at 35, 36 wins. I'm excited. I'm excited for this season, and I'm obviously a Celtics fan. I'm a basketball fan in general. I always lean towards college, and Kyrie was my favorite college player, even though he played 12 games in college. I don't know if I've ever been this excited for an NBA season. Maybe when Pierce and Garnett and Ray were there, that was a special season. But I don't know, to kick off a year, and I know the B.S. nerds have mentioned this, to kick off a season, I don't know if I've had so much. Like, I've been counting down for tonight. So it's going to be a long season. The NBA is a long season. I think the Celtics I'm picking them to win the East. Cleveland 2. I can't see any situation where Golden State doesn't win the West. And I'm going to go. It's hard for me to go against the Spurs as the 2 seed. I'm going to go Oklahoma City. I think they're going to be pretty good. If they all mesh, they could end up being a 41-win team because they don't mesh. But I'm not going to pick the Spurs to be the number 1 or the number 2 seed. I'm going to go with Oklahoma City. And Golden State, in my opinion, is head and shoulders above every team in the NBA. Doesn't mean they're going to win the NBA title or anything like that. I just think during the season, obviously, they're going to have a good record. In the playoffs, it's just hard to beat a team that's that good 4 out of 7. Now, we're a long way from the playoffs, and injuries happen, things happen. It's just, if everyone's healthy and there's no trades or nothing crazy happens, I think it's really hard to say a team, East or West, is going to go and play Golden State 7 games or best of 7 and be able to beat them 4 times before Golden State beats that team 4 times. And I said the same thing last year, and I was right, not because it was like the pick of the century. It was just they were that good and everybody knew it. Another team in the West, just saw it. I don't even know why I didn't say them. I think they're going to have a tremendous season, is the Houston Rockets. I think between the Thunder, the Spurs, and the Rockets, it's going to be a fight for second. I think they're all pretty even. They're all really good. I might even say the Rockets they were the 3 seed last year. They might be better than the Spurs. The Spurs might be a really, really, really good 4 seed. I mean, the West is just that much better. Everyone's going West. LeBron's going to go West next year. And that's just how it works. So, I mean, that's all I really have for the NBA. I mean, we haven't had any games yet. First game's tonight, so next week we'll talk about that. But like I said, some of the picks, really, I think the Celtics are going to be over. Cavs are going to be under. Sixers are going to be under. Golden State 67.5 is about right. I mean, most of the time Vegas has it pegged pretty good, barring a complete fold or something like that. Most of the time it's pegged pretty right. So I'm going to go watch some playoff baseball. I'm going to get ready for the Celtics game. And I will be back next week with episode 3. I'm hoping with my co-host Joel West. Now, Joel has a super busy schedule, especially this time of year. So it could be me for a little while, just thinking out loud, as Ed Sheeran would say. But once he's back and we get back into that routine, it's going to be real fun because we're gonna get his opinion on some Steelers stuff. We're going to get his opinion on some NBA, some MLB stuff. And then we're going to get really close in the next month to college basketball season. And that is where you're going to hear the personality of Joel come out if the Duke Blue Devils play horrendously or have a player like Harry Giles. But that's all I got for you guys today. I appreciate you guys listening. Be sure to check out all the shows on the B.S.N network. They're phenomenal. They're honestly phenomenal. Until next time, guys. Take care.